This is my Honda VTR1000F. You normally see me working on that, the NCMX5 or Miata, but today, for the first time on this channel, we're going to be working on this thing. We're going to be taking this right side crankcase cover off. In here, there's the clutch, and over here, there's a water pump. The water pump is driven by the crank, so there's an impeller in here and a bunch of seals, 2 seals actually, and a bearing. And when the bearing wears out, obviously as the impeller spins, there's going to be a lot of heat in that axle or in that shaft, and that heat is going to cause the seals to fail. And when one of those seals fails, that spout is going to start dripping coolant, and you can see there's coolant that's dripped out, and it's gotten there, it's kind of dried up, and it's left these white marks all along there. So we're going to take all this off, and since we're changing the bearing in the seals anyway, and we're going to have to press out the water pump impeller, while I'm there, I'm going to replace the impeller as well. So 4 parts that you're going to need. I've put a link to the exploded parts diagram down in the description below. Also, I've listed all the parts and part numbers for the OEM parts that you'll need to do this exact same job. First, we're going to drain the coolant out of the right side radiator and the water pump housing. So I'm going to disconnect this short and fat radiator hose, and you can disconnect the other 2 narrow hoses if you want, but I'm going to leave them on. Then we're going to remove these 4 8mm bolts to take the water pump housing cover off. And once the cover's off, I'm using a small flathead screwdriver to pick out the rubber gasket. It doesn't look too bad, but when I put this all back together, I'm going to use a brand new one. Then there are a whole bunch of 8mm bolts on the right side crankcase cover. You want to get all of these out and keep them organized because they're all different lengths. Now this cordless ratchet I'm using, absolutely love this thing. It's even got an anti-recoil feature, so if I tighten something and keep my hand on the trigger, it's not going to slam my knuckles against an adjacent piece of metal. I've put a link to it in the description below, so if you use that to get yourself one, that will support me and support this channel, so thank you in advance. On the bottom left and right corners of the crankcase cover, there are 2 pull tabs that you can grab onto and pull. I wasn't able to get it off just with my hands, so ideally I would have liked to use a slide hammer, but I didn't have one. So instead I'm using a pry bar on the right side pull tab and tapping it with a hammer. Once you get the cover off, you'll see the pulse generator, and it's held in with 2 10mm bolts. You need to take those bolts out and get that off as well. And at this point, my phone overheated and it stopped recording, but you didn't really miss anything because I just took the entire crankcase cover to a local bike shop with the replacement parts, and they use their hydraulic press to press out the old parts and press in the brand new ones. Now, I apologize for the horrible camera angle. I'm going to fix that for future videos. So I just used my finger to spread a really thin layer of Permatex black RTV all around the mating surface on the crankcase cover, positioned the brand new gasket over it, and then I used my finger to put another really thin layer of RTV. And the reason why I'm not just squeezing a bead around the entire thing is because I didn't really have much left in the tube, so what I ended up doing was cutting the tube and kind of scooping it out with my finger. And my phone overheated again, so unfortunately that's all the footage I have, but at this point, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to work it out on your own. It's just the reverse of taking it apart. Important thing I want to mention is when you're tightening up all the crankcase bolts, you want to go a little bit at a time in a star pattern. Now, I wasn't able to find a torque spec for the crankcase bolts, so I ended up just doing it by feel, and that's just by snugging it up, holding the ratchet close to its head. I think that torque would be pretty close to using one finger on the end of a typical 8mm wrench. At least that's for me and my strength. But for those of you watching, if you know what the actual torque spec should be, let me know in the comments. So thank you for watching, and catch you in the next video. Bye.
Are you serious, Tony?